We finally got ourselves a dragon dance. Swing your partner round and round, gut them with your toe. Oh yeah, dragon talons are no joke. These beasts are a formidable force. They've got the talons, the fire, obviously, their bite. Their blood seems to be boiling hot. They do not look where they're walking. And when they land, this was a nice surprise, they explode. I guess hitting the ground, literally knocking the fire right out of them. I mean, that's hilarious. It's almost like dragon farts all over the place. Like, woo! I have to say there were some funny moments this episode as well. I mean, it was a great episode. But like, for instance, when Rhaenys landed right on the castle, I was like, oh my God, you can't try and sway that thing to the left or the right. You landed right on your own castle. That was funny. All right, so they're flying nukes, though. Make no mistake about it. And you can see the visual similarities to nuclear war in the aftermath of that battle. That's a metaphor that's made by the show. For instance, with Bodies of Ash, you know, when Sir Criston Cole wakes up and he's like, come on, man, we gotta go. And the night just crumbles. One of the things I don't understand, though, is that these dragons, you know, they're animals. They're sentient creatures. They bond with their riders and seem to have relationships. I mean, we've seen a couple of cute moments this season. You know, you guys said, like last week, the dragon was like, hey, look over there. You know, stuff like that. So why are the dragons so willing to kill at the orders of someone else? I'm surprised none of the dragons are like, could you sit me down before this battle and really tell me why we're doing this? You know, I mean, because it does seem like a partnership, right? I mean, because you might be like, because I told you to, that's why. But I think that it seems like a relationship of mutual respect from what we've been shown. I mean, it's not even like with dog fights, right? Where owners cruelly abuse the dogs to make them angry and vicious. These dragons are pampered. Like, what do you have to be so upset about? I just saw your gorgeous setup back at Dragonstone and stuff. That Vhagar, though, in particular, what an evil bitch. Wow. Although, when she arrived in the trees like a T-Rex out of Jurassic Park, that was very nice. I almost wish that had gone on a little longer. Well, I wish the fight had been a little longer, but it was still very good. I'll take what we can get. Because what an episode. And I have to tell you, the episode is much better the second time that you watch it. The first time that you watch it, I don't know what experience you had. A lot of you probably just finished it. But, you know, you spend a lot of the time watching the clock tick down and you're like, when are you going to get to the dragon fight? But the second time, you know when it's going to happen. So you can just sit back and relax and enjoy the entire episode, where there's actually a lot to sink your teeth into, just like Vhagar. Because there's a lot of important stuff that happens, not only character-wise, but also symbolically. So it turns out, I start to see the whole season start to take shape. But even though I understand the reasoning behind it, I still think they should have sped things up a little bit. This really should have been episode 3. I just think, I know a lot of you are still in it, but I think the last episode, lost a little of the momentum for this season. So hopefully it's not too little too late. Hopefully this brings everybody right back in it. But the reason things have been a little slow for the first 3 episodes is because Rhaenyra was unsure if she should truly unleash the horrors of the dragons. Oh my God, Rhaenyra, yes, you should. And then also because Aegon is incompetent. We're going to discuss both those things in a moment. But first, take a look at this map I saw on social media. This is a fan map of Westeros, and you can see that there's King's Landing and there's Dragonstone. And it's amazing to me that this itty-bitty part of Westeros is causing problems for the whole rest of it. Although I don't know how much they are affected, I mean, I'm sure, like the taxes and regulations will affect them. But, the fighting has so far largely been contained to this area as well. But the fact that that tiny little part of this giant area is causing all these problems and where it's centered is very realistic for a fantasy show. And also, look how powerful the Starks are. Look how much land they have. Ooh, I'm starting to understand even more so why the Stark family is such a big deal. But also, I'm now even more wondering why they're not a part of this show. I think that House of the Dragon is small in scope. not only in terms of it's just like this one family fighting about who should sit on this chair, it's like, you're all part of the same royal family, pick somebody and let's go. And I think that's kind of where Alicent is starting to be right now. I'll talk about it a little bit more at the end of this breakdown. But, Alicent, Rhaenyra last episode was like, you made a horrible mistake. And I think, Alicent partially doesn't want to own it, but she's like, who cares at this point, man? Like, whatever, let's just move on. And I think that, I gotta say, maybe Alicent actually is somewhat intelligent. And I'll be interested to see how things continue to play out. All right, but I think that not only is this one family just fighting over this chair, but it only takes place in the small part of Westeros, whereas Game of Thrones, we saw the map at the beginning of each episode because we jump around all over the place. And so I think that is something like, look, even Harrenhal is pretty close to these other places that we've been looking at. So I think that hopefully House of the Dragon season 3, it's already been renewed, even though they continue not to report ratings. I think they'll keep going with it. I mean, hopefully, especially after this episode. But they've already started filming a spin-off show as well. And I hope either of these shows, or maybe even both of them, opens the board back up. This is the Game of Thrones, but let's play with the full board, for Pete's sake. Why are we just stuck in the corner? Nobody puts baby in the corner. All right, so back to Rhaenyra. Speaking of babies, back to Rhaenyra and Aegon. Unsure and incompetent. Until two things have just happened. All right, so with Rhaenyra, she now knows without a doubt that her father did not change his mind, and she is the rightful heir to the throne. And she doesn't want to rule just because she thinks she'd be good at it. I mean, really, she can't even rule her war council. So I have serious doubts whether or not she could rule Westeros. But the point is, she feels, based on that legend that her father told her, Aegon the Conqueror's dream, that she must be on the throne to eventually save humanity. And it's, kind of her family's, the whole reason that they tell themselves they need to be in power. And so she's like, come drink the Kool-Aid, son, next to this dragon's head, just like your grandfather did with me. I mean, it's even next to a dragon skull, both times. So she tells her son, the legend, right? And, I'll explain it to you in a second, but they don't even bother to retell it here because it doesn't matter. Well, actually, there is something very important. There is one thing that's really important, which I think is actually very cool. And I wish they had gone over the legend a little bit better because I think this is really interesting and they're not doing enough with it. So it turns out that Aegon the Conqueror had a dream, and that dream was the Game of Thrones show, basically. Was he too disgusted by season 8? He's like, and then this ending of the story shall make no sense and betray the first 7 years. All right, so anyway, he said a Targaryen had to be on the throne for mankind to basically win against the White Walkers, right? Well, we know that 2 Targaryens came very close to the throne, but neither one of them was actually sitting on it when the Night King was killed. But maybe they were close enough to fulfill the prophecy. However, crucially, it was Aegon's blade that Arya Stark used to kill the Night King, the very same blade that Viserys held while telling Rhaenyra about this prophecy last season, and that Aemond picks up next to his brother's smoking body at the end of this episode. So I would say, bottom line, it's this blade that's moving throughout history along the Targaryen bloodline. This is so cool in my opinion. All right, because remember, Aegon and Aemond are also Targaryens until eventually it gets to Arya Stark. It disappears, in fact, for most of Game of Thrones. Maybe it'll get its own show someday. Who knows? You get a show. Although I would like to follow this blade, to be honest with you, because this is interesting to me. But as you might recall, in season 7, Littlefinger suddenly was like, woohoo, look what I got. Gave it to Bran, who knew to give it to Arya because, he can see, he's mystical, like Helena. And remember, Bran, of course, ultimately is the one who became king, not a Targaryen, even though Jon Snow technically was. But this blade, moving through history, as if it had a will of its own almost. I think that's like really cool. And I wish that the show would play that. I mean, I have picked up on it. It's there, but I think it could be there even more. I think that's really cool. I love that Aemond picked it up. That really sold it for me. All right, so over the past few episodes, Aegon, it turns out, has actually been dismantling his father's seat of power. Oh, wow! Like, we were all like, we all felt bad when he destroyed his father's Lego set. The actor who played Viserys even posted that on his own social media. We were like, no, not the Lego set! but it was part of an overall dismantling. So the Lego set, his father's books, I like the line where he's like, I didn't burn them, mother, I just took them out of my room, but he's not using them, right? His grandfather, Otto, the hand to the king, first his father and then to him. And then also even his mother, who was the queen and ruled in Viserys' place while he was sick. And, Alicent points this all out. She said, all you had to do was step in literally into your father's place. We'd already built this whole infrastructure around you, and you just had to sit there and hopefully realize that and learn so that you could eventually, Viserys never really needed to do anything. I think Viserys, he understood the system, I guess, to some degree. And that's where Aegon fails, because Aegon feels he's been anointed. He feels that his father and then therefore God wanted him to be king. He doesn't realize that he's playing a game that he needs to learn how to play. And now that he's basically dead in the water, he is just shocked to see everyone else just keep playing right past him. Like when his council's all excited about Aemond's plan and they're like, ooh, Cole's the kingmaker. And then Aegon's sitting there listening going like, yeah, but who's Cole making king? Although I don't think Cole is betraying Aegon, because Cole is also an idiot, which we'll get to in a moment, in a very similar way to Aegon. But then when Aegon storms out, the council just keeps on talking. They're like, Aemond's going to be sitting in that chair pretty soon. Who cares who's sitting in the chair? Because they know that they're going to probably keep theirs, right? In some ways, the king is the least important person in that room. He's a figurehead. And, unfortunately, Aegon did not realize that. And who wouldn't want to be excited by Aemond's plan? It's the first time we've had a real plan on this show, certainly this season, although the shadow of Otto Hightower still looms large. Because let's talk about Sir Criston Cole. He might be successful in his campaign, but he's, as I said, as childish as Aegon and also does not realize that he's playing a game. Cole believes in fairy tales. This is actually also extremely well written. This show moves so slow, but when you really see it start to come together, you're like, that is very well done. So he's a zealot, right? He believes in righteousness and fairy tales and right and wrong and stuff like that. And we saw that. There was the first evidence of that when he tried to get Rhaenyra to run away with him. Remember, he's like, let's go sell peaches, baby. And she's like, I'm supposed to be queen. So that was great. And he's still that same guy, right? I think he loves Alicent. I don't think actually he is thinking of Alicent as like a piece on the board that he can use. I think he honestly just feels better about himself now that he was made hand of the king. And so he's like, hey, baby, look who just got a promotion. I think he just honestly feels, and Alicent, by the way, just got rid of his baby without consulting him. I think Cole just believes that he's this righteous knight who's going to help the king, help Aegon, and then also who's partners with Aemond to help Aegon. How stupid is that? That Cole actually thinks that he and Aemond are in it together. He's like, wait a minute, Aemond is making decisions in the field without talking with me? And you're like, you work for Aemond, you idiot. All right, so as the head of the house, where Cole defeats that area and they're putting that guy to death, Cole's putting him to death himself. That Lord predicts Cole's own death will soon come as well, because Cole acts as if diplomacy will never come back into play. He's like, we've done away with diplomacy. And you're like, no, you didn't. As soon as this war is over, diplomacy will come back in. And some people might be upset with you, Cole. I think a true leader realizes that there's a mix of war and diplomacy, right? So Otto might have been a little bit too slow to move, but as Alicent reminds us, it's only been a few weeks since Viserys has died. I gotta tell you, it feels more like 2 years. Wink, wink. It's so silly that they're like, it's only been a couple of weeks since Viserys died. And you're like, what are you talking about? It doesn't feel that way at all. And I think that's on the show, that they didn't make it feel that way. They should have opened the second season maybe with Viserys' death again, just reiterating it or showing it from a different perspective or something, because it feels like it's been an extremely long time. I mean, I think a lot of the haphazardness of these decisions and the emotion still running high would make more sense to us if we felt like this had all really just been gone down. I'm sure some of you will be like, I felt that way, Grace, but I think some of us have not. The argument that Aegon and Aemond have during the council meeting early in the episode is also a fantastic scene. Not only because it's cool, like, excuse us while we talk our private dragon language, although I'm sure that Larys Strong probably understands High Valyrian, but it works on another level as well, in that it becomes clear during the conversation that Aegon does not speak High Valyrian very well. And I bet you he doesn't understand it that well either. So while at face value, it seems like Aemond is doing his brother a courtesy. Let's have a little tete-a-tete here on the side to hash this out. He's in fact only further embarrassing his brother and putting Aegon at a disadvantage. And everyone can read that in the room because, here's the thing. Aegon is too proud to say, he's not very good in High Valyrian. They can't have the conversation in that language. But also, he can't even bluff his way out of it. So everyone in the room can, tell what's going on. Now, Aemond is not only dealing with Aegon quite effectively, but he has a plan for Damon as well. One that's even more nefarious than you might realize. All right, so Aemond and Larys Strong, who is supposed to be in control of Harrenhal, remember he burned his own brother and father alive in there, they're not at all upset that Damon is trying to take it over. In fact, they welcome it. Larys Strong explains that he's already removed all the gold from the castle, so all that's left is for Damon to get distracted and fall away and be weighed down, basically it's like a sand trap, trying to fix Harrenhal because it's such a mess. On that note, please enjoy one of my favorite Damon / Harrenhal memes from the internets. But Aemond does more than just agree with Larys Strong, I think. I think he's taken a little extra step to make sure that Harrenhal will destroy Damon. How? Bringing in Alys Rivers. Alys Rivers has been at Harrenhal, but I believe that she is an agent of Aemond. All right, so I don't think it's a mistake that Damon has a vision of himself as Aemond, which leads him right to Alys. Now, you could at first, I think to some degree this is still a true read of this, but I think you would at face value read this vision as Damon feeling that maybe he's no better than Aemond now. They're both child killers, right? He's like, I'm better than Aemond. And you're like, no, you're not. But then also they're in this weird place like ships in the night crossing where Aemond, of course, is trying to pull an all about Eve with Damon and be the new Damon. And I think to some degree, maybe Damon feels he's doing it. Right? And he will fade away and Aemond will become the new Damon and perhaps succeed where Damon didn't and become king. Very interesting. But I think that the vision is also a calling card with Alys, who I think is behind that vision, letting Damon know who sent her. It's almost Aemond leading Damon to Alys. I say all this because Alys Rivers in the books, let's just say she has a relationship with Aemond. And that's all I'll say for now. But wow, what a character. And what a power couple they would make. I love this for them. I love this for the characters. I love this for the actors. This is like my peak fantasy couple. A dragon rider and a witch. And they both are so cool. I love it. I can't believe Damon drank that potion, by the way, willingly. His weakness really is women, including Rhaenyra. In many ways, which is also so interesting, right? It's sad to watch Damon go mad. It really is, as he wonders what he loves more, Rhaenyra or the crown. And when he wakes up at the beginning of the episode, he imagines blood on his hands. A little too on the nose. But, obviously he does have a lot of blood on his hands. I'm like, everybody's got blood on their hands in here, man. All right, but don't worry. Damon will get his big dragon battle. And when he does, I hope it's a little bit longer than the one in this episode. The Rook's Rest sequence was still very cool. I do think that Aemond versus Lucerys was better at the end of last season, and the Battle of Gold Road was also better back in Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4, as an overall battle that involved dragons. I thought that was better, and I think because the human people had more to do there. Like, for instance, Aemond says, this war will not be won by dragons alone, but by dragons flying behind armies of men. And I'm like, I saw that battle, Aemond. All the guys just stood down there like turkeys with their mouths open, looking up in the sky as these dragons fought. And then, just like a turkey, when the water liquid came down, they drowned, or in this case, got burned by it. All right, so anyway, I'm like, man's not doing too much in this fight. All right, so why Rook's Rest? Well, as Aemond explains, it's an easy win, which will boost everybody's spirits and make them look good. It deals a blow to Rhaenyra's council because Rook's Rest is one of their council members' castles. And as we can see, that council is a mess. They're going to fall apart any second from infighting, and this maybe could be the thing that tips the scales. And then also, it will cut off the island of Dragonstone entirely from the land. All right, so I'm surprised with all the fire that's going around that dragon riders would not wear more armor, but that the armor that they do have, why on earth is it metal? With all that heat? I mean, that must be why Rhaenys and Aemond wear so little armor. I mean, Aemond has almost no metal on. But then why is Damon so stupid? He's walking around in like a little portable top oven, right? From medieval times almost. He's got like a little chimney. All right, speaking of dragon riders, we learned that Rhaenyra's real problem is lack of riders to ride the dragons that she has, right? So she's too valuable. She can't go into battle. And her son and Damon's daughter are too inexperienced. Plus, Damon himself has gone AWOL. So that really only leaves Rhaenys, who clips herself into her nuclear bomb. I'm like, where did she get a clip from? Did they have clips in medieval times? I don't think I've ever heard of a clip in medieval times. I feel like Matthew Broderick in Cable Guy. I'm like, oh, but there was no flatware in medieval times, but they had Pepsi. I'm like, how are you clipping into your saddle? All right, so anyway. So it was a little bit like Dr. Strangelove, but with multiple bomb riders. And I gotta say, I think the dragon battles here are really pushing the House of the Dragon budget to the breaking point, because the visuals on this show are super crisp and clear. But that does not do any favors for the VFX team, because as soon as these dragons enter, things start to get kind of blurry. You have like these super crisp soldiers running around and then like a blurry Vhagar behind them. And you're like, that giant blur is gonna stop. Oh, it did. So it almost seems like it would be like not like, fully tangible, like a pull a Kitty Pryde and maybe you'd be okay. So Aemond and Cole's original plan was a surprise dragon attack on Rook's Rest, right? It turns out that Gwaine is really just there for for Cole to talk to. All right. Which is so sucky for that character. Like, it's like, you're like, what? You're just like a writing tool, buddy. And he's like, I'll take it. All right. But Aegon, King Aegon, feeling bad for himself, gets drunk and decides he's going to play hero and enters on his own dragon. Much to Cole's horror, because like everything else, Aegon's not good at dragon riding either. And of course, he's also too valuable to be put into the field, just like Rhaenyra. Now, Aemond sees Aegon before he joins the battle, because how do you hide a dragon as big as Vhagar? You hide him very, very far away. They have like a whole, a domino effect of trumpet blowers for the signal, because that's how far away Vhagar is. So Aemond's like, I'm just gonna hang back. And, so hopefully it'll all go to plan. Maybe Aegon will just get killed. However, the problem is that Aemond can't wait for too long, or else it will become suspicious, because Cole knows he's supposed to show up. So he eventually has to ride up, and Aegon's still alive. He's still there. And it was an instant classic Game of Thrones moment when Aegon sees his brother coming and he's like, oh, yay, thank goodness, I'm going to be saved. And then his brother Dracarys all of them. I mean, that was great. That was fantastic. That Aegon, a dummy to the very end. I thought it was great. Aegon's dragon falls to the ground and explodes. Is Aegon dead? I don't believe that he is, not just because of the books, but also because his dragon is still breathing. And I think especially when I watch the episode again, you can kind of hear Aegon's own grotesque, tortured breathing. He takes one like, and you're like, and Aemon's like, I just can't kill this guy. But he's pretty cooked. He's been cooked inside that armor, which now it makes it even more interesting that they focus so much on it for the past episode or two, right? Maybe they won't even be able to get it off of him. The cruel irony. So again, great writing, but it's just so slow. It's like the slowest magic trick you've ever seen. Like, oh, you can tell me if you got my card or not? Next week. All right, Aemond's walking away from his brother's smoking body, though, with Cole collapsed in grief and guilt, is an amazing shot. It's so cool, and I just really love Aemond's look. He looks so great. Never underestimate the power of a good leather jacket, particularly a long one. That one's just gorgeous. So Rhaenys dies, very much sacrificing herself. She turns back twice into this battle. Twice she had the opportunity to retreat. She's clearly a very experienced rider, right? And she almost did win against both Aegon and Aemond. She really got her shots in. But I'm not sure what she hoped to accomplish. I thought to myself, why didn't she retreat? And then I was reminded, at the beginning of this season, Damon called her out for retreating at the end of last season, saying, if you'd acted then, we could have ended this war right there. If you'd killed Aegon when you had the chance. And so I guess she feels guilty about it, but I mean, come on. How did this help? And as I said, she landed right on the castle and she accomplished nothing. I mean, she's not even the one who got Aegon. That was Aemond himself. So she did absolutely nothing. But beautiful acting from Eve Best, though. Some really nice moments, where she knew. She knew. Did you know? She's been Walking Dead for a couple of episodes now. I mean, I knew, again, because of the books, but I think they were telegraphing it hardcore. Like her conversation earlier in the episode with Alan, and she's like, "You are so handsome. Your mother must have been so beautiful." And the reason she's saying that is because that means her husband's mistress must have been very beautiful. Because clearly, I guess, Rhaenys never saw her, doesn't know who it is, but she knows that this is the results of that affair, these two sons. Well, we're only looking at one of them right now. On this note, House Valyrian is in desperate need of male heirs. This is freaking Game of Thrones, where a lot of crazy stuff goes down. Why would Corlys be so nervous to claim these two strong, talented, charismatic men for his house? It makes no sense, unless he's just trying to protect Rhaenys' feelings. And even she's like, "I don't care, we need them." But now that she's dead, expect the roles of the two brothers to increase exponentially, I think. Finally, speaking of fire, as I said, Alicent drops a truth bomb this episode, in a way answering Rhaenyra's persistent claim, like the beating of a drum, that she was her father's choice. Larys must have gotten word from his spies, that guy's everywhere. Even though Alicent is not using her handmaidens, you saw her have to make a ye old hot pack herself with a hot stone and some fabric. Good acting, though, from Alicent, though, not feeling well. I thought that I could feel how she did not feel well and how annoying Larys was. But anyway, so Larys knows that Alicent has been like, "Do you think Viserys really wanted Aegon to be king?" And so he comes in to put a stop to it, and he goes, "Look, no matter what Viserys wanted, the people wouldn't have accepted a queen." And Alicent says, "You know what? At this point, people are going to believe what they want to believe." Maybe she's trying to make herself feel better, but I think she's also, as I said, dropping a truth bomb here. And that's the people are going to believe what they want to believe at this point. And all that matters now is who wins. Viserys' wishes died with him. And that reminds, that both sides are going to believe whatever they want, no matter what new information might be presented to them. Reminds me of modern politics. And at the end of the day, all that matters is who wins. All right, so that's House of the Dragon episode 4. We're now halfway through the season because it's only 8 episodes this season. What do you think so far? Do you think the show has gotten its mojo back? Did it get it back in time? They're really pushing episode 5 as well. I haven't seen it yet. They only give this to us at the beginning of the week. But HBO has already been promoting episode 5 as well. So what did you think? What did you think? I thought it was, as I said, not only a great episode, but I think it was redemption for some of the earlier episodes as you see the long game that the show is playing. But as I said, the long game means nothing if people aren't around or audiences aren't around to see it finish. It'll be very rewarding for bingers, but this is a weekly show. All right, share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.